After reading the intel, Lin Yang planted a goal in his head. He washed up, went downstairs to grab breakfast at the community entrance, and then went looking for the self-service vending machine the intel had mentioned. There were 5 bottles of iced black tea left inside, 3 yuan each. He scanned the code, paid, and the bottles were pushed out one by one. He bent down, picked them all up from the pickup slot, popped the caps, and scanned each cap with his phone. Each scan redirected him to the official mini-program for a lucky draw. The possible prizes were, thank you for your patronage, a 0.68 yuan red packet, another bottle, an 888 yuan red packet, and a family island trip worth 9,999 yuan. The first cap landed on thank you for your patronage, so did the second and the third. On the fourth cap, the cursor finally stopped on the family island trip. He entered his details and successfully claimed it. He could take the trip any time within 6 months with 1 week's notice. He didn't skip the 5th bottle either. This time, the draw landed on the 8888 yuan cash red packet. Holy smokes, he muttered. 888 yuan wasn't much, but getting it from a bottle cap was unexpectedly lucky. Even more astonishing, there were only 5 second prizes nationwide, and those last 5 bottles in the vending machine had yielded both the grand prize and a second prize. With the island trip secured, Lin Yang made his way to Building 7, Unit 601 in the Jinling community, the haunted house he had bought for 180,000 yuan. He'd bought it for the demolition compensation, never expecting anything else. A thick film of dust coated the outside of the door, proof that nobody had lived here for years. The murder case that had happened here had left the place unsellable and unrentable until he bought it. He slid the key in, turned it, and heard the lock click. The moment he pushed the door open, dust exploded into the air. He covered his mouth and nose, waiting until the particles settled before stepping inside. The furniture and fixtures were dilapidated from long neglect. The chill from the house's history clung to the rooms. He headed to the bathroom. The entire ceiling had collapsed and lay in a pile on the floor. Tangled in it was a black plastic bag that seemed to be bulging with something. He reached for it. The bag split under his touch, and a glint of metal flashed out. Holy smokes, it's gold, he breathed. The intel had been right. Time and weight had torn the ceiling down. Inside the torn plastic were gold bars, thin, playing card-sized bricks, about half a centimeter thick. They were heavy in his hands, each weighing roughly 100 grams. There were 20 of them, 2,000 grams in total. He stuffed them into his bag and left. On his phone, he searched for gold buyers and took a taxi to the nearest shops. The small shops couldn't take all the gold at once, so he spread the sales across 6 different stores, selling 3 or 4 bars at each. Every shop offered the same price, 700 yuan per gram. 2 kilograms at 700 yuan per gram came to 1.4 million yuan. Add that to the money he'd had left after buying the house, and Lin Yang had just over 1.5 million yuan. He planned to put all of it into Yushu Technology stock. If the stock paid 20% daily for a week, he could make a lot in 5 days, if everything went according to the system Intel's projections. First, he had to open a brokerage account. He downloaded the securities app, registered, linked his bank card, and completed facial recognition, and prepared to transfer funds. Because it was Sunday, the market was closed. He'd have to wait until 9:15 Monday morning to buy in. The Intel system had been upgraded to a weekly push, so he'd only get new Intel once a week now. With most of the groundwork done, he let himself briefly imagine the good life to come, sleeping without alarms, buying whatever he liked without looking at the price. 11 days from now, the Jinling community demolition announcement would come out. He expected tenfold demolition compensation. With principal and gains combined, he figured he'd end up with around 50 million yuan. After repaying a 2 million yuan loan, about 48 million left. His stock principal would be 1.5 million. With a 1.488 times return, that would be about 2.23 million, bringing his short-term total to roughly 3.73 million. There was also a bug in a blue payment app offering a 20% discount. By shuttling money between his main and alternate accounts, he could allegedly make around 750,000 yuan per transfer, and doing it 60 times would net about 45 million yuan. In other words, if everything worked out, his assets could surpass 100 million yuan in half a month. From nothing to over 100 million in 2 weeks, few people moved that fast. His phone buzzed. A flight reminder popped up. Departure at 10:30 the next morning. He had filled in his information after winning 3YC's 30th anniversary lucky draw the night before. The organizers provided airfare and accommodation to pick up the prize in person. The big reward was a Looking Up U8, a flagship luxury model worth millions, which he could drive home. Before he put the phone away, another message came in from Chen Qingqing. Lin Yang, thank you for your reminder that saved my restaurant from a disaster. I can't imagine what would have happened without your tip. Let me treat you to dinner tomorrow. I'm going to Shenzhen tomorrow. I'll catch up after I get back, he replied. All right, I'll contact you in a few days, she answered. The next morning, he transferred 1.5 million yuan into his brokerage account, leaving only a few tens of thousands for daily expenses. When the market opened, he bought as much Yushu technology as he could. After breakfast, he caught a taxi to the airport bound for Shenzhen. That evening in Shenzhen, he collected the Looking Up U8. It belonged to 3YC's luxury line, over 1,200 horsepower, 0-100 km 3.7 seconds, and weighing 4 tons, more like a tank than a car, imposing and brutal. Two of its most talked-about features were its ability to pivot on the spot and to float on water for 30 minutes. He hadn't spent much to enter the draw, only 54,800 yuan on a used car to qualify, and that used car was nearly resellable at the same price. In effect, he'd gotten a 1 million yuan luxury vehicle for free. He was delighted. He didn't even stay the night in Shenzhen. He drove the U8 straight back toward Jing City. The 1,000-kilometer trip took the entire night. He rolled into the community just after 8 in the morning. Rush hour swarmed with people, commuters, parents taking kids to school, shoppers. Several people clustered at the community entrance, blocking the lane. Lin Yang honked. The horn cut through the noise. The crowd split to either side and cleared a path. The massive off-roader glided in. Its lines were rigid, yet fluid. The mecha-inspired design gave it a technological, domineering air. Sunlight struck the metallic body, and it shimmered, instantly drawing everyone's eyes. Chapter 22, Classmates Reunion. Hey, what was that car that just drove into the complex? I've never seen that emblem before. An elderly woman returning from the market asked the young man beside her. I don't know. Some kind of lightning bolt emblem. That car looks so imposing. It can't be cheap. The young man pulled out his phone and searched, car brand lightning bolt emblem. The results popped up. Oh my God, that was a Looking Up U8, a domestic luxury SUV worth millions. Whoever's driving that is loaded. At the words, luxury car worth millions, the older woman's eyes shone with envy. 1 million could buy 2 apartments around here. I wonder which rich relative owns it. Qin Jiwan had overslept that morning and was running late for work. As he hurried downstairs without tidying his apartment, he caught sight of a dominant, tank-like SUV parked below. It was his dream car, the Looking Up U8. He whipped out his phone, snapped a few photos, and posted them to his Moments. Saw a Looking Up U8 downstairs this morning. Truly a dream car, far more impressive in person. The parking spaces here can't even hold it. Likes and comments poured in immediately. Wow, whoever bought that must be rich. You don't see a Looking Up U8 every day. Definitely next-level wealth. A G-Wagon might catch my eye, but a U8 makes me want to go talk to the owner about the smart features. I heard the waiting mode is insane, can basically drive through water like a boat. Isn't there a drone on the roof? Supposedly it scouts ahead so you can avoid cops when you're drunk driving. Watching the notification count climb, Qin felt a brief glow of satisfaction, as if the car were his. Then he remembered he was late, shoved his phone away, and sprinted for the bus stop. When Lin Yang pulled into the complex and parked, he saw Qin Jiyuan furiously taking photos of his car. By the time he got out, Qin had already run off. Lin smiled, went back upstairs, and fell into bed to catch a few more hours of sleep. He was exhausted after driving all night. He woke up only because he was starving. His phone said it was well past 4 in the afternoon. Preparing to go out for a late meal, he noticed several missed calls, all from Zhang Jun, who had earlier invited him to a class reunion. Lin hadn't wanted to go and had declined at first, but Zhang Jun had persisted. Since Zhang Jun worked as a lobby manager at Xingcheng Bank and Lin had taken out a loan there, the calls were awkward to ignore. Lin called back. Sure enough, it was about the reunion. Zhang said not everyone would attend, only 7 or 8 classmates who still lived in Xing City would come. Lin agreed. He had nothing better to do, and maybe he could pick up useful information. After getting the address, he hung up, washed up, changed into clean, tidy clothes, and drove to the reunion. The reunion was in a private room at the Big Fish Begonia Buffet. Lin raised an eyebrow when he saw the location. The main hall cost $688 per person, while private rooms were $998 with a 10-person minimum. The group message said the class monitor, Shi Kong, was treating, clearly splurging. Lin wondered who Shi Kong was trying to impress. Chen Qingqing? Did she know Chen and the two were close? He filed the thought away as he headed downstairs. As he passed the parking lot, a cluster of kids had gathered around his SUV, talking excitedly. What kind of car is this? So domineering. Don't you know a looking up U8? It's over $1 million. Over 100? I'm going to tell my dad to buy one. No way. Who told you that? Your dad can't afford it. One little boy looked up at Lin and asked, Uncle, is this your car? Yes, it is. They said my daddy can't buy a car this nice. Will you be my daddy? Lin laughed. Children were honest in the strangest ways. Come on now, step back a bit. I need to drive out. The kids obliged, and Lin eased the SUV into traffic toward Big Fish Begonia. Shi Kong was a local of Xing City. His family had good connections, and he had started working at the planning bureau right after graduation with a promising trajectory. So when he organized the reunion, many classmates in town immediately took half a day off and arrived early to wait by the hotel entrance. Is that Audi A4 Shi Kong's new car? Someone asked. 565 Yeah, that's the plate he posted in the group. When Shi Kong's car pulled up, everyone stood up and moved to the entrance. The Audi screeched to a stop. Before the doorman could react, a classmate dashed forward, yanked open the door, held it with one hand, and leaned on the frame. Section Chief Shi, all the classmates are here waiting for you. Haha, we're all classmates. No need to be so formal, Shi Kong said with a broad smile. He hopped out, enjoying the attention even as he deflected the title. He hadn't officially reached Section Chief yet, but he didn't correct them. Is that your new car? Someone asked. Yes, my mother bought it for my birthday. I didn't want her to spend so much, but she insisted, said you can't find a girlfriend these days without a car, he chuckled. A few classmates who hadn't bought cars didn't look resentful so much as envious. Top trim too, over 300,000. Being from here helps. We're barely getting by, and Section Chief Shi is already driving an Audi. Some people are born in Rome, others are born to carry its burdens. Still, only someone kind like Shi would forget his old classmates. The flattery made Shi Kong beam. He tossed the keys to the doorman and swaggered into the hotel. After 2 steps, though, a thought stopped him. Lin Yang. He didn't see Lin in the crowd. Shi knew about the upcoming demolition of Jinling community through work at the planning bureau, and he knew Lin had purchased all the available properties there. Someone who knew and was willing to act on such inside information must have powerful connections. If she could get close to that person, promotions and pay raises would be easier. That was part of why he'd called this reunion. If the right people weren't here, the whole thing lost its point. Where's Lin Yang? She asked, stopping in his tracks. The others looked puzzled. Lin had been an excellent student, but had done poorly after graduation, working as a technician in a small private factory with no prospects compared to the entrepreneurs and public servants in the group. He'd skipped past reunions before. Why would she suddenly be concerned? At that moment, a deep, powerful engine note rolled in from the street, turning every head. A massive SUV approached, its rugged lines and imposing stance cutting a figure all its own against the other cars. Whispers spread, "What is that? Looks like a looking up U8, worth millions." The SUV eased to a stop. Everyone held their breath. When the door opened and Lin Yang stepped out, the entrance fell silent, and then the crowd erupted into gasps. Lin Yang? No way. He's from the countryside. Where would he get the money for a car like that? Right? Didn't he used to be a technician in some small factory? This is too much of a change. The murmurs spread like a current through the crowd. Shi Kong's smug expression disappeared the instant he caught sight of the car. He had never imagined that the quiet, ordinary Lin Yang would show up in something far flashier than his own Audi A4. A dull disappointment hit him. His carefully cultivated sense of superiority suddenly felt fragile. Then, excitement flickered in his eyes. Working at the planning bureau, he knew how much power and opportunity a single connection could bring. For Lin Yang to afford such a car in only a few years, there had to be heavy backing behind him. That fit perfectly with the latest rumor. Lin Yang had bought up every available unit in Jinling community because he knew it was about to be demolished. Whoever had that kind of inside information was not someone to be trifled with. If Shikong could get close to Lin Yang before whatever secret came out, that might smooth the road for future promotions and raises. The smile he'd been wearing returned, sharper and more eager, and he hurried over. Lin Yang, long time no see. You've really surprised us. That car immediately changes the whole scene, Shikong said, stretched out both hands to grab Lin Yang's and beamed as if greeting an old friend. Lin Yang looked mildly taken aback by the enthusiasm, but returned a polite smile. Long time no see, class monitor. It's a reunion, rare chance for everyone to be together. I didn't want to show up shabby. You don't have to say that, Shi Kong laughed, clapping Lin Yang on the shoulder. With your ability, a car like this must be nothing to you. He then performed a grand gesture toward the restaurant. Come on, come in. Everyone's been waiting for you. They walked toward the private room while the rest watched, mouths open. Shi Kong's sudden deference made them exchange puzzled looks. What's gotten into him? He was always arrogant in school. Why is he fawning over Lin Yang? Someone whispered. Exactly. They weren't even close before. What's going on? Another added. Zhang Jun had heard about Lin Yang buying 10 properties recently and that he'd made some money, but even that didn't explain Shikong's obsequiousness. Shikong came from a well-off family and worked in a government bureau. He didn't bend easily. There had to be something else about Lin Yang that they didn't know. Isn't that the Looking Up U8 Off-Road Player Edition? Nearly 1.7 million on the road price. You didn't rent it just for the reunion, did you? A classmate joked, unable to hide his skepticism. Don't be ridiculous. We've known Lin Yang for years. He's not the kind to rent a car to show off, another defended. Didn't he get fired from the factory a few days ago? Maybe he's just driving his boss's car as a favor, someone else said with a snide smile. The remarks pricked at Lin Yang like thorns, but he didn't flinch. He stood calm and composed, face unreadable. His quiet confidence said what words could not. The car was his, and nothing anyone said would change that. To answer would be to prove insecurity. He refused to play that part. His demeanor only deepened the speculation. Shi Kong, overhearing the doubts, scolded lightly, smoothed over the talk, and tried to steer things back to manners. Everyone, don't jump to conclusions. There are reasons for everything. We're classmates. We should be happy for each other. If Lin Yang's doing well, I'm sure he'll help anyone in need. His tone was protective, but his mind worked over the possibilities. Who was behind Lin Yang? What connections did he have? As he led Lin Yang into the private room, his attention fixed on ingratiating gestures and questions about Lin Yang's life, as if they were long-lost brothers reunited. At the table, Shi Kong theatrically pulled out the head chair and then, to everyone's amazement, insisted Lin Yang take it. You should sit here today. You're the big shot among us now. This seat belongs to you. The room fell silent. Normally, Shi Kong would have claimed the main seat without a second thought. He relished such moments in the past. Now he'd ceded it without hesitation. Whispers picked up again, now edged with disbelief. Is this reunion actually for Lin Yang? Someone muttered. Why is Shi Kong acting like this? Everyone took their places, but nobody focused on the food. Eyes kept drifting to the new dynamic between Shi Kong and Lin Yang, searching for hints. Shi Kong fussed over pouring tea and serving dishes to Lin Yang, eager and attentive. Lin Yang simply smiled faintly and accepted the courtesy, revealing nothing of his motives or history. The private room's atmosphere had shifted from reunion warmth to a quietly tense puzzle. No one could say for sure what lay behind Lin Yang's sudden rise, only that something had changed. and everyone wanted to know which secret would come out first. Chapter 24. The car was won in a lottery. Shikong's face split into a wide smile after he successfully added Lin Yang on WeChat. He knew he couldn't ignore the others. Too much obvious favoritism would look bad, so he began to raise his glass more frequently, greeting his classmates and playing the attentive host. Everyone, eat as much as you like. Tonight we're going to feast. Come on, let's all toast to years of friendship. Although some classmates had doubts, they put them aside for the moment. Glasses clinked and wine went down. Lin Yang lifted his glass, toasted with them, and sipped the red wine. Since he was already there, he went along with it. Just then the private room door opened and two waiters pushed in a trolley. On it sat a huge Australian lobster, its bright red shell gleaming under the lights, surrounded by delicate side dishes that made everyone's mouths water. A bottle of red wine with an elegant label was placed on the table as well. When Shikong saw the lobster and wine, he felt a flicker of unease. He'd ordered the buffet. Those two items weren't part of it. Had the waiter made a mistake? But looking around at his classmates' envious faces, he hesitated. If he spoke up now, he'd lose face. So he swallowed his doubt and decided, with a forced smile, to act as if they were his treat. Ha! Everyone try this Australian lobster. It's so fresh. And this red wine, it's rich and full-bodied. It pairs perfectly with the lobster. He feigned nonchalance and the classmates' curiosity flared. Wow, that lobster is huge. That wine looks top tier. It must be expensive. Eyes darted between the lobster and the bottle, full of anticipation. Someone, having checked a local WeChat account, announced, I saw on Big Fish Begonia's public account, Lobby Lobster by the piece. It's 8,888 yuan. And that wine? Their own vintage, 18,888 a bottle. Wow, today we really have a treat. Long live the class monitor. Class monitor, you've really gone all out. Lobster and fine wine. Today we're basking in your glory. A few classmates laughed and praised Shikong. Another nodded, calculating the costs in his head. Private room buffet for nearly 10,000. The lobster 8,888. The wine 18,888. Almost 40,000 yuan. That was more than half a year's salary for some of them. The gap between their lives and Shikong suddenly felt huge. One quietly resolved to latch onto him. Shikong soaked up the praise with mixed feelings, pride and a prick of anxiety. He smiled, waved off the compliments, and said, We're all classmates. No need to make such a fuss. I just want everyone to enjoy themselves. Still, he kept stealing glances at Lin Yang, hoping to read his expression. The waiter deftly broke down the lobster and distributed it onto plates. The classmates eagerly dug in. The meat's so fresh and tender, chewy and sweet, delicious. This is my first time eating a real Australian lobster. Thanks so much, class monitor. If not for the class monitor, we wouldn't have had a chance to try this. The praises grew louder, and many took out their phones to take pictures, post to moments, and upload short videos. Likes and comments came fast. No way, that's actually Big Fish Begonia's a la carte Australian lobster, and their house red. How did he afford it? Those two alone are worth half my pay. I want to taste it and see if it's really worth that price. While he basked in the flattery, Shikong didn't forget his original purpose. He wanted information from Lin Yang. He still didn't believe someone who could know about government demolition in advance had no connections. Picking up his glass, he strolled over to Lin Yang with a smile. Lin Yang, come on, have a drink. Your being here really gives me face. Lin Yang smiled and stood. They clinked glasses. He took a small sip and nodded. This wine is really nice, better than most I've had. Shikong felt pleased, thinking his move had worked. He patted Lin Yang on the shoulder and asked conversationally, It's been years. You're different. That factory that fired you was short-sighted. What have you been up to lately? Lin Yang smiled modestly. Don't tease me, class monitor. I'm just lucky, like a blind cat stumbling on a dead mouse. That car outside? I won it in the 3YC 30th anniversary lottery. Shikong's smile tightened. He didn't believe it. He knew about the 3YC giveaway. 30 cars drawn from millions nationwide, and the U8 was the best model among the prizes. How much luck did it take to win that? The more he thought about it, the more convinced he was that Lin Yang was hiding something. But Lin didn't want to say more, so Shikong couldn't press him further, at least not today. He told himself that even a 1 in 10,000 chance was worth cultivating. The other classmates, who didn't know about Lin Yang buying a house, were far more ready to accept the lottery story. In their minds, the only plausible explanation for a poor kid driving a million-yuan car so quickly was an incredible stroke of luck. It was a lottery? What car did you use to enter? I used a Leopard 5 that cost over 200,000 and didn't win. Yeah, what car did you register with? Lin Yang smiled and answered simply, a used Seagull, bought for just over 50,000. Good grief, your luck, someone exclaimed. To enter with the cheapest VIN and walk away with the biggest prize. Everyone marveled at his fortune and then resumed flattering Shi Kong. Shi Kong smiled and tried to keep the attention balanced. He made a point of speaking kindly to Lin Yang while still chatting up others. After they'd eaten their fill, Shi Kong patted his stomach contentedly and called, "Waiter, bring the bill." The private room quieted. All eyes turned to him. A moment later, the waiter returned with the bill, smiling and slightly bowing. "Dear guests," she said, "today's meal, including service charge, comes to a total of 38,888 yuan. However, our owner instructed us that Mr. Lin is our distinguished guest. His meal is complimentary." What? Shi Kong almost lost his balance. The wineglass in his hand wobbled. He widened his eyes, disbelief written all over his face. "What did you say? Lin Yang's meal is complimentary?" The students were stunned, mouths open, faces flushing with embarrassment. They had all assumed the extravagant feast was Shi Kong's treat, lobsters, red wine, the works. But now it turned out they'd actually been treated by Lin Yang. "What?" someone muttered. "So the lobster and the wine were Lin Yang's doing," whispers rippled through the group. Shi Kong's expression flickered from angry red to pale. He hadn't expected this. He'd meant to show off in front of classmates, not become the joke. He stole a glance at Lin Yang, who wore a faint, indifferent smile, as if none of it concerned him. Regret pricked Shi Kong. If he'd admitted earlier that he hadn't ordered the meal, he could have avoided this humiliation. Still, it wasn't entirely bad. Big Fish Begonia was the classiest seafood buffet in Jing City. Ordinary people didn't get invited. Lin Yang's connection to the place confirmed what Shi Kong had been suspecting. The newcomer had real resources. To reach his position, Lin Yang had to have thick skin and deeper networks than normal. Shi Kong recovered quickly and laughed loudly. "Ha! Today we all benefited from Lin Yang." One of the students, quicker on the uptake, strode over to Lin Yang with a beaming smile. "Lin Yang, you know the owner? Amazing! Thanks to you, we got to eat such good lobster and drink good wine." He even poured Lin Yang a glass, as if currying favor with a VIP. Others flocked in, switching attitudes in a heartbeat. "You keep a low profile, Lin Yang. Take care of us more in the future. If you have any ways to make money, don't forget your old classmates." The entire room pivoted from fawning over Shi Kong to flattering Lin Yang. Lin Yang watched the flattery with a small, resigned smile. He hadn't expected Chen Qingqing's single gesture to cause such a stir. He took the compliments politely. "Please thank your boss for me," he told them, then nodded to a waiter when it was time to leave. Surrounded by well-wishers, he stood and made his way to the private room door. The students shadowed him like loyal followers, murmuring thanks and trying to leave a good impression. Shi Kong stood to the side and watched Lin Yang go, feeling the loss of the center he'd hoped to inhabit. But he wasn't bitter. If Lin Yang was powerful, that was useful to him. The gathering had been meant to win Lin Yang over. A little loss of face now would be worth the connections he might gain later. Outside, the doorman had driven Lin Yang's car around. He opened the door and slid into the seat while the students continued to call out compliments. Waving, he started the engine and drove away. Even when his car was far down the road, he could still see the students waving. He smiled. From their conversation, it was clear this wasn't the first alumni gathering they'd held, and he'd never attended before. They'd known he lived in Jing City, but hadn't reached out to him. The moment they found out he had ties to Big Fish Begonia and had secured a free meal, their behavior changed completely. They flattered him because there was something to be gained. Lin Yang didn't sneer at them. People flattered for advantage all the time. A few days earlier, he hadn't even had the chance to attend a reunion and be flattered. Now he was on the receiving end. He owed it all to the intelligence system. The system let him see opportunities ahead of time and had changed his life. The daily intelligence had been upgraded to weekly, making each piece of information more valuable and occasionally delivering high-value tips worth tens of millions. He drove fast through the night, the city lights blurring past like slides. After an hour, he returned to Jinling Community, parked, went upstairs, washed, then lay on his bed and checked the stock market on his phone. He had invested 1.5 million, all in Yushu technology. The system's tip had been right. Yushu rose 20% 2 days in a row, netting over 40% in just 2 days. His securities account showed more than 2.1 million. Satisfied there were no surprises, he set the phone aside and slept. 3 days passed. On Friday morning, the first thing he did was open the app. The intelligence showed Yushu had hit the daily limit for 5 straight days, and today was the last day. When the market opened, he sold everything. In 5 days at roughly 20% a day, his 1.5 million had ballooned to about 3.73 million, an increase of roughly 2.23 million. Admittedly, the profit wasn't huge compared to what he might have made with a larger principal, but the system had already sent him another, much bigger tip. This afternoon, between 2:35 and 2:40 p.m., the Blue Payment app would have a bug. All transactions would be subsidized at 20% for that window. Lin Yang had prepared for days. He'd logged into the app on 2 phones with 2 different accounts and had bank cards with near unlimited transfer limits. He set multiple alarms so he couldn't miss the window. By 2:30 p.m., he was at his desk. Phone memory cleared, Blue app open, watching the seconds tick down. 10, 9, 8. With 1 second left until 2:35, he hit transfer and moved all 3.73 million from his main account to his secondary account. As the transfer processed, a discount message flashed on the screen. 20% subsidy, 746,000. Actual payment, 2,984,000. He pressed to confirm. The transfer completed, and the secondary account received the full 3.73 million, while his main account was only debited 2.984 million. Without hesitation, he switched to the second phone and reversed the transfer, sending the 3.70 million back to the main account. The same 20% subsidy message appeared. In under 10 seconds, the round trip was complete. Because the app charged only 80% of the amount sent while delivering 100% to the recipient, each transfer effectively created 20% of the transferred sum. By moving the entire balance back and forth during the bug window, he had generated 20% of 3.73 million twice, 746,000 in each account. When he stopped, both accounts had gained an extra 746,000 compared with their starting balances, a total created value of 1,492,000. Lin Yang stared at the numbers for a moment, feeling the ridiculous, dizzying reality of what had just happened. He had just exploited an official software bug and turned the system's glitch into nearly 1.5 million yuan in minutes. Chapter 26, Bug Early Repair. Originally, his account had 3.73 million, but after a few quick transfers, one account showed 4.476 million and the other 746,000, a gain of 1.492 million in 10 seconds. Lin Yang didn't hesitate. Time was money, and once this bug was fixed, it would be gone for good. He immediately moved the entire 4.476 million from his main account into his secondary account. The transfer screen again showed the discount in bright red. 20% discount, 895,200. Actual payment, 3,508,800. The instant the transfer went through, the small account balance read 4.476 million plus the earlier 746,000, totaling 5.222 million. He promptly sent that back to the main account. Transferring 5.222 million showed an actual payment of 4.1776 million, a net gain of 1.4444 million on that round. In just 20 seconds, he had made over 2 million moving the money back and forth. The intel had said the bug in the Blue Payment app would last 5 minutes, so Lin Yang kept at it, unwilling to waste a second. As transfers increased, the apparent discount amounts grew too, rising from the initial hundreds of thousands into the millions. He kept shuttling funds between the 2 accounts without pause, but after just over 2 minutes, a failed transfer notification suddenly popped up. Transaction abnormal. Transfer failed. Lin Yang frowned. The intelligence had said the bug would last 5 minutes. Why had it broken down after a little more than 2? He tried again, but the same message kept appearing. He continued until 2 minutes 40 seconds, when the discount notices themselves vanished. The disappearance of the discount meant the bug had been fixed. He opened his Xingcheng Bank mobile app to check his card balance and froze. The display showed an 8-digit number beginning with a 9. Before the bug, he'd had 3.73 million. Each transfer had only been granting a 20% bonus. How had his bank card suddenly ballooned to nearly 100 million in a couple of minutes? Then the math hit him. Each transfer effectively multiplied the balance by 1.2. If repeated many times, the growth compounded dramatically. In his later transfers, the amounts had grown huge, and those abnormal fund movements must have drawn official attention, which explained the failed transfers. If anyone had stumbled on the bug by accident, the company might have simply absorbed the loss. But Lin Yang had known in advance and prepared to exploit it. The sums he accumulated over dozens of transfers were so large that they were bound to trigger scrutiny. A flush of unease rose in him. If the company decided to recover the mistakenly issued funds, they would come after him. He had deliberately piled up a massive, conspicuous amount. For a moment, he imagined all his effort being wiped out. His phone buzzed. A WeChat message from his roommate Qin Jiwan popped up. Lin Yang opened it to find a news link. Z Payment Treasure P0 level incident, 20% discount on all orders from 1435 to 1440. Under the link, Qin had written, Lin Yang, have you heard? Z Payment Treasure has a bug, 20% subsidy on everything. Did you get any of it? I wish I'd known. I would have been transferring money to myself the whole time, the message continued. Lin Yang smiled to himself. Plenty of people, like Qin, were kicking themselves for not noticing the bug earlier. He opened his moments and scrolled through dozens of posts that had appeared in minutes. Z Payment Treasure Bug, 20% off. Too bad I only bought a screen protector, saved 2 yuan. I paid at 1434.59. Why didn't I wait 1 more second to hit enter? Unbelievable. Someone was transferring money back and forth and got over 20,000. Most of the posts were people lamenting missed opportunities. A few luckier ones bragged about small windfalls. Lin Yang smiled inwardly. Tens or hundreds of yuan were getting benefits to most people, but nearly 100 million was on another level. His 2.2 million had turned into almost 100 million in a few minutes. What he didn't know yet was whether that massive amount would be reclaimed. He closed WeChat and began scanning news sites for more information. The Z Payment Treasure 20% discount story had spread rapidly, but there was no official statement at first. Finally, around 3 p.m., he found the company's announcement. Statement regarding already issued marketing discount funds. Since this was our mistake, we will bear the cost and responsibility ourselves. We will not reclaim any marketing discount funds that have already been issued. Please rest assured. Phew, he breathed. That meant the money in his account was his to keep. Nearly 100 million, an amount most people wouldn't make in a lifetime, had appeared in just a couple of minutes. More importantly, it gave him capital. When the system pushed new intelligence next week, he could use that capital to make even more. An interview clip about the bug was also going viral. In the video, a reporter asked a Z Payment Treasure spokesperson, "How much loss did this incident cause?" "It's at the billion level," the spokesperson replied, "including a single user who extracted nearly 100 million in marketing discount funds through repeated transfers." Extracting 100 million in such a short time, that sounds deliberate. Why aren't you reclaiming it? It was precisely because of this user's large fund movements that we noticed the issue and were able to stop it from causing even greater losses. For that reason, we decided not to reclaim the marketing discount funds. The clip quickly racked up over 1 million likes and hundreds of thousands of comments. Lin Yang clicked into the comments section and watched people react. "I use Z Payment Treasure all the time, but not today. Woe is me. I filled up 500 yuan of gas and saw a 100 yuan discount. I didn't realize what was happening. Who's the person who extracted nearly 100 million? How do you even do that? Did they have inside information and prepare in advance? 20% each time. To get to 100 million, your principal must have been huge. Even if I'd known, I couldn't do that. Lin Yang read the messages and smiled. The chaos had been enough to send shockwaves through the platform, and in the end it had secured him something he could use. Chapter 27. 100 million is stable news that Z Payment Treasure had a bug giving a 20% discount on all orders spread online like wildfire. Those lucky enough to pay during the glitch felt they had struck gold. Those who missed it were left full of regret. The most talked about piece was the interview video released by Z Payment Treasure's official account. In it, the company admitted that one user had exploited the bug to the tune of nearly 100 million, and that amount would not be recovered, making nearly 100 million in a few minutes. This sounded almost too good to be true. As the story rippled through social media, skeptical voices rose. This has to be fake. Why would they reveal who exploited nearly 100 million? That sounds made up. Exactly. They might waive a few thousand or even a few 100,000, but they wouldn't just give up nearly 100 million. Unless they name the user, I don't believe it. Z Payment Treasure had intended the video to look like a responsible admission, taking the hit publicly to rebuild trust. Their market standing had slipped in recent years as competing apps and Tiango shopping ate into their dominance. They hoped to show accountability and turn a PR loss into an image win by announcing that they had lost nearly 100 million and would not pursue recovery. Instead, their move backfired. People simply couldn't believe that anybody could snatch nearly 100 million in only a couple of minutes. Netizens began running the numbers, and after careful calculation, concluded it was impossible to grab that much without prior preparation. Z Payment Treasure found itself in a bind. Revealing the user's identity would destroy any claim to user privacy. Refusing to reveal it invited accusations of fake reporting meant to polish their image. Either way, they could expect no favorable outcome. All they could do was sit back and watch the conversation rage online. Lin Yang watched the coverage and the debates with a smile. If he hadn't been the person who actually did it, he would have been just as incredulous as everyone else. He closed the newsfeed, opened his online banking, and stared at the balance on his card. 98,542,428. Leaving that money to sit idle felt like a waste. It needed to be put to work. The stock market was an obvious choice. While the adage goes that 9 out of 10 traders lose money, Lin Yang had an edge, a weekly intelligence system. When a stock was about to post consecutive daily gains and a large market move, the system would flag it. With that intel in hand, losing money was unlikely. For example, following the system's tip earlier that week on Yushu Technology had netted 5 consecutive daily limit ups and returned 148%. The only hitch was that moving a very large sum in and out of a stock at once would create big short-term price fluctuations, which would prevent him from fully capitalizing on the intelligence. He could solve this by buying and selling in many small batches, but that would be tedious. The best approach was to find a trusted stock advisor to handle the actual trading. He'd give the strategy and the money, and the advisor would execute. He messaged Zhang Jun. "Do you know a reliable stock advisor?" Zhang Jun worked at a bank and was well placed in the financial world, so Lin Yang expected he might have a contact. Lin Yang had attended the recent class reunion partly as a courtesy to Zhang Jun. Connections mattered. Classmates might not be as wealthy as he was, but they could still be useful resources when needed. Less than a minute later, Zhang Jun replied, "I do. There's a very capable senior of mine who joined Xincheng Securities after graduation. She was promoted to branch manager in 2 years, and she's got a spotless track record. Clients don't lose with her. I ran into her a few days ago. She's about to be promoted again." Just as Lin Yang had hoped, Zhang Jun knew the right people. Someone who sustained a business and climbed the ranks quickly had both a network and real skill. That was exactly the kind of person he wanted. "Can you put me in touch? I want her to handle trading for me," Lin Yang typed. "I can, but..." Zhang Jun hesitated. Lin Yang prompted him. "Say it, we're classmates. No need to be too circumspect." "She's great, but she only takes large accounts. She won't consider anything under 10 million, Zhang Jun said. Lin Yang smiled. 10 million was no problem. Fine, arrange a time for us to meet. Zhang Jun was taken aback. His reaction was instinctive. In hearing Lin Yang agree so casually, he realized what that meant, that Lin Yang had at least 10 million in liquid assets. It had only been a little over 2 years since graduation, and already Lin Yang had amassed a net worth in the tens of millions and owned a portfolio of properties. Even Shi Kong, who had been considered the most successful by many, likely couldn't compare. Zhang Jun felt grateful he'd had the opportunity to interact with Lin Yang when Lin came to the bank for a loan. Now that Lin was treating him like a friend and asking for help, Zhang Jun knew he had to handle it well. If Lin ended up depositing a few million with their bank, it could help Zhang Jun's career prospects. With that on his mind, Zhang Jun called his senior at Xingcheng Securities right away. Chapter 28, School Beauty. It was 5 in the afternoon, almost closing time. The large conference room at Xingcheng Securities was crowded. A big screen on one wall displayed the March performance curve. A man in his 50s, suit neatly pressed and hair immaculately combed, was addressing the room. As you can see, he said, although the overall environment is tough, our performance is not worse than the same period last year, and we achieved a 30% month-on-month increase. I want to thank everyone for their hard work. He paused, then his gaze landed on Hu Qian. Manager Hu. At the sound of her name, Hu Qian sat up straighter. The middle-aged man smiled and continued. Manager Hu, congratulations on topping the performance rankings again this month, with a significant increase. Your bonus of 500,000 will be transferred to your account before the close. Applause exploded through the room. Colleagues looked at Hu Qian with open envy. She's been number 1 every month since she joined. The rest of us might as well fight for second place. Why is life so unfair? She's already gorgeous. Must she be brilliant too? Hu Qian smiled faintly as she accepted the congratulations. She applauded with everyone else and stood to thank them, her voice calm and composed. Thank you, thank you. After the meeting, almost everyone had left. Hu Qian was packing her things when her phone rang. The screen showed Zhang Jun calling. She answered, smiling. Jun, are you calling to invite me to dinner at this hour? Not at all, he replied. A college friend of mine asked me to recommend a stock consultant, and I thought of you right away. Hu Qian frowned. She and Zhang Jun had been neighbors since childhood and knew each other well. From what she knew, the most successful of his classmates worked at the planning bureau. Beyond that, she hadn't heard of anyone particularly wealthy. They had only graduated a little over 2 years ago. Having a few $100,000 in savings would already be impressive. Such clients were below her threshold. They wouldn't bring much in fees, and any losses could damage her reputation. Jun, she said, you know my minimum for taking on a managed account is 10 million. If your friend can put up 5 million, I might help, on one condition. He must follow my strategy completely. Zhang Jun worked at a bank and understood the implications. He hurried to reassure her. No misunderstanding, I've checked. He has 10 million. Hu Qian was stunned. 10 million just 2 or 3 years after graduation. Who was this? A trust fund heir or a business prodigy? Curiosity flickered. All right then. Have him come to my office tomorrow at 10. We'll talk details. Okay, Miss Hu. I'll bring him. After hanging up, Hu Qian shook her head and smiled to herself. It wasn't the money that intrigued her, but the age of the investor. She had plenty of clients with 10 million, but they were all middle-aged. She'd never had a client in his 20s with that kind of capital. The next morning at 9:30, at the entrance of Binjiang Financial Building, Zhang Jun brought Lin Yang to Xingcheng Securities. Lin Yang had texted yesterday and been told to come straight to the company today. He hadn't expected Zhang Jun to arrive at his door so early, insisting on accompanying him, but he went along without complaint. Zhang Jun was courteous and attentive. An outsider might have assumed Lin Yang was the boss. They stopped before a 66-story tower in the heart of Binjiang, the city's financial district. Banks, insurance companies, and securities firms clustered here. Office space was gold. Daily rent ran over 50 yuan per square meter. Only major firms could afford it. Xingcheng Securities occupied the 49th floor. 49th floor, the elevator announced. The doors opened. Zhang Jun held the door and gestured for Lin Yang to step out. Here we are, Xingcheng Securities. A receptionist at the front desk looked up. Good morning. Do you have an appointment? We're here to see Manager Hu Qian, Zhang Jun said. Mr. Lin, Mr. Zhang, Manager Hu is expecting you, the receptionist replied, coming out from behind the desk to lead them down a corridor. They passed several offices before stopping at a door marked Manager's Office. This is Manager Hu's office. Please come in. Inside, a woman in her 20s with long hair and a sharp business suit was typing at her desk. The receptionist announced them. The woman stopped, rose, and extended her hand. Hello, Mr. Lin. I'm Hu Qian. After shaking his hand, Hu Qian gave Lin Yang a once-over. He was young, good-looking, and carried himself with an easy confidence. Hello, he replied simply. They all moved to the lounge area. Zhang Jun fussed with the cushions before sitting down and gesturing for the others to do the same. Miss Hu, this office is impressive. Just luck and the trust of my clients, Hu Qian said modestly. They've entrusted their funds to me to manage. Don't be modest, Zhang Jun said. Back in school, you were already famous, always first in the simulation trading contests. Hearing that sparked recognition in Lin Yang. He remembered the name. Hu Qian had been the campus star, beautiful, graceful, and more than capable. She had won the campus beauty titles year after year, but she was more than a pretty face. She'd been student council president, led several clubs, competed in and won countless contests, and still topped her department academically. Everyone else seemed to play second fiddle whenever she appeared. No wonder she felt familiar. He had seen that kind of presence before. From the moment Lin Yang stepped into the office, Hu Qian's eyes never left him. After polite greetings, they settled onto the sofa opposite one another. Hu Qian smiled and said, Young man, your classmate told me you're quite successful. Zhang Jun nodded. Lin Yang really is. At his age, he already owns a lot of property and a lot of cash. He's on another level compared to us. But how did you know, senior? Hu Qian's smile deepened. It's obvious. I deal with people all the time. You can spot someone who's successful by the way they carry themselves, their eyes, their manner. Think about how you behave when you meet a high-ranking boss at work. Zhang Jun remembered the nervousness he felt in those situations, speaking softly, avoiding eye contact, moving cautiously, as if an invisible pressure weighed on him. Even when he met someone like Hu Qian, no matter how familiar they were, he couldn't shake the feeling of being a subordinate in the presence of a superior. Lin Yang, by contrast, had been open and relaxed the whole time, talking like an equal. That confident ease came from success. Beside him, Lin Yang nodded, pleased. He understood now why Hu Qian had risen so far. She read people well. Anyway, let's get down to business, Hu Qian said. Mr. Lin, I have no objection to managing your investments, but you must understand the stock market is risky. 10 million can become 20 in a month, or it can shrink to hundreds of thousands, or be wiped out entirely. There are mines out there. High risk, high return. Lin Yang smiled. I've chosen this path, so I accept the risks. That's why I came to an expert like you. Hu Qian nodded. Since you know the risks, we can proceed. Give me a moment. I'll fetch the entrustment contract. She rose, took a prepared contract from her desk, and handed it to him. Look it over. If everything's fine, sign where indicated. Lin Yang read it carefully. The contract protected both sides and spelled out two modes of operation. One was full discretion. The money transferred to a designated account, and Miss Hu would manage everything. Profits would be split 80-20 in her favor. If there were losses, a fixed handling fee of 50,000 per transaction would apply. The other was semi-custodial. The investor specified which stocks to buy, at what prices, and when to sell. The manager charged a 3% handling fee on profits, while losses still incurred the 50,000 transaction fee. Stock advising was clearly lucrative. The manager profited whether clients gained or lost. Lin Yang preferred the semi-custodial arrangement, but he balked at the 3% fee. For most people, 3% might be reasonable, but he wasn't most people. His intelligence system pushed information that he knew was 100% accurate. If he acted on its prompts, there was no chance of loss. Every decision would be profitable. He needed help only because his capital was so large that his own trades would move the market, eroding profit, and managing it himself would consume all his time. He was willing to share gains, but 3% was excessive. He said, "I prefer the second option, but I'd like to modify the handling fee to 1.5%. And to be fair, charge 1.5% regardless of profit or loss." Hu Qian's brow creased. Normally, she charged a 70-30 split, or 4% of profits. She had already given him the lower fee terms, usually reserved for VIP clients investing over 50 million, out of courtesy to Zhang Jun. At his age, with no apparent background, she'd assumed he couldn't possibly have that kind of capital. Lin Yang continued talking smoothly while she considered the numbers. Halving the profit fee sounded like less income for her, but requiring a percentage on losses as well offset that. With both directions generating fees, the firm's take wouldn't shrink, might even rise. Ms. Hu quickly ran the math in her head. "All right," she said, "we'll draft the contract with your terms. Wait here." While she prepared the revised version, Zhang Jun leaned over and whispered, "Lin Yang, why lower the fee? There's no guarantee in the market. Won't this hurt you?" Lin Yang smiled. A loss can be a blessing. He knew exactly what he meant. Others faced uncertainty. He didn't. On a 10 million profit, cutting the fee to 15% saved him 150,000. With frequent trades and larger sums, the savings would multiply. Ms. Hu returned with the reprinted contract and set it on the table. Lin Yang read every clause again. Satisfied, he reached for a pen. "How should I fill in the capital amount?" He tapped the blank for the sum to be entrusted. "Put in the exact amount you plan to invest," Hu Qian replied. "If you increase it later, you'll have to sign a new contract. Larger capital gets lower fees, so we update terms accordingly." "Understood." Lin Yang wrote a numeral on the line, a 1 followed by 8 zeros. Hu Qian's eyes widened as she leaned closer and silently counted the zeros. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, she mouthed inwardly. 100 million? She checked twice, then a third time. It was unmistakable, 100 million. Zhang Jun had said Lin Yang had no wealthy family, had only recently graduated and accumulated impressive assets. 10 million would already be extraordinary at his age. 100 million was almost inconceivable. Mr. Lin looked up calmly after signing. "That's right. Is there a problem?" Chapter 30. He is my boyfriend. Is it really 100 million? "Mr. Lin, how do you have so much money?" The question escaped Hu Qian before she could stop herself. Immediately she flushed. Asking a client about their finances was a serious faux pas. Still, it was difficult to believe. She had thought 10 million would already be extraordinary for someone his age. 100 million was on a different level. Even many successful middle-aged investors wouldn't casually put that sum into the market. "I'm sorry, Mr. Lin. I shouldn't have asked about your source of funds. Forget I said anything," she added hurriedly, trying to recover her professional composure with a softened, slightly aggrieved tone. "It's fine," Lin Yang said. "Just help me manage it well and make more money." He changed the subject. "The funds won't arrive until next week. That's okay, right?" Hu Qian straightened up and resumed her businesslike manner. "There's one problem." "What problem?" "Didn't I tell you the more you invest, the lower the commission? With 100 million, we need to change the contract." She rose, amended the contract on her tablet, and handed it to him. "With an investment of 100 million, you'll be our company's top SVIP client. You'll get the lowest commission rate and the best service, 24/7 support, priority in everything." She rattled off the perks. In short, as VIP clients jumped to the front of the line across the firm. Lin Yang didn't memorize every detail, but he did note the fee. He scanned the revised contract. Apart from commission clauses, everything else was unchanged. The rate had been lowered to 1% flat, 0.5% less than before. On 10 million, that saved 50,000 per transaction. With many trades, the savings would quickly add up. He signed. Zhang Jun stood nearby, still in shock. He mentally rewound everything he knew about Lin Yang. In college, Lin had been studious and broke, working part-time jobs while others partied. After graduation, he'd worked in a small factory. Then he suddenly showed up at the bank, took out loans, bought 5 properties, and now, he claimed, he was investing 100 million. Zhang's mind kept landing on the same theory, hidden second-generation rich. If he really is a rich second-generation heir, he's hiding it awfully well, Zhang Jun muttered. He couldn't reconcile the image of a graduate working in a factory with someone who could casually place a nine-figure sum into stocks. Maybe the parents concealed the family background, like scenes in those short melodramas, only revealing it later so the son wouldn't become spoiled. The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. He felt lucky he hadn't shown contempt back when they met at the bank. He had merely shown the right amount of superiority. Now that he'd introduced such a high-quality client to Hu Qian, that favor might bring him benefits in the future. He smiled inwardly at the potential. "Junior, what are you mumbling about?" Hu Qian called, and Zhang Jun snapped out of his reverie. "Nothing. Are we ready to go?" "No, Mr. Lin, dinner at Westlake Restaurant is on me. Junior, you should come too." "I can't. The bank called. There's an urgent task." He fumbled for an excuse. Westlake was an upscale hotel restaurant with architecture modeled like an antique palace. One dinner there could easily run 4,000 to 5,000 a person. Zhang Jun didn't think he deserved such a treat for free. "You introduced such a great client," Hu Qian smiled. "It's only right I treat you." He couldn't refuse after that. "All right, thank you, senior." They went down to the underground parking. When the elevator doors slid open, the SUV in front of them dominated the space, a rugged, imposing model that turned heads. "Isn't that the Looking Up U8, the off-road player edition? Over 1.6 million on the road," Hu Chan exclaimed. Lin Yang smiled at her surprise. "Manager Hu, you know your cars. You must see a lot in your line of work." "I've seen many luxury cars," she said. "That's why seeing a domestic model priced over 1 million is surprising. People who spend 1 million plus on a domestic car don't care about the social status a foreign luxury badge confers. They buy what they simply like. That kind of indifference to brand image, that's true wealth." Zhang Jun nodded. "Exactly. Our Lin Yang is the real deal." "What? You mean this is Mr. Lin's car?" Hu Qian felt a flush of embarrassment, as if she'd been showing off to an expert. Lin tapped his phone to the car's sensor, and the vehicle unlocked. He slid into the driver's seat, leaned out, and called, "Manager Hu, are you driving or?" "I'd love a ride. I've never been in a Looking Up U8. She hopped into the passenger seat. Zhang Jun followed. Lin set the navigation for Westlake Restaurant and drove them toward the entrance. They arrived just as a commotion drew their attention. At the restaurant steps, a man in a suit was kneeling, holding out a bouquet of red roses. Before him stood a long-haired beauty, visibly exasperated. "Chen Qingqing, marry me," the man pleaded. "Wang Bin, I told you I don't like you. I already have a boyfriend," she snapped. Wang Bin grinned as if he'd got a perfect line. "You have a boyfriend, huh? Who is he? Call him over. If he shows up, I'll believe you." Chen Qingqing's face fell. Wang Bin had been pestering her since their last class reunion. He knew most of her male friends. She had no time to find an actor. Then, out of nowhere, a familiar figure appeared walking toward them. "He is my boyfriend," she called out. Chapter 31, Deeper Contact. Lin Yang entered the Westlake restaurant with Hu Qian and Zhang Jun. The famous eatery in Xing City looked more like a palace than a restaurant, luxurious and grand. Its antique architecture, with upturned eaves, intricate carvings, and painted beams, gave every detail an air of history and cultural depth, as if stepping inside transported you to a prosperous age of the past. In the lobby, bright palace lanterns hung overhead, casting a soft, clear light that touched every corner. The marble floor gleamed underfoot, reflecting figures like a cool mirror. Around them, classical Chinese furnishings with fine wood grain released a faint woody scent that blended with the atmosphere. Calligraphy and paintings, loose landscapes, and delicate bird and flower works hung on the walls, adding an artistic hush to the bustle. The restaurant was busy. A steady current of people moved through the dining rooms, while servers in neat uniforms smiled and attended to guests. Amid the noise, Lin Yang's eyes snagged on a familiar figure. He saw Chen Qingqing surrounded by a small crowd, looking helpless, while a man knelt before her holding a bouquet of red roses. Chen Qingqing's outfit today was a departure from her usual professional suit. She wore a casual printed t-shirt and light blue ripped jeans, an untroubled, playful look. Suddenly, she pointed directly at Lin Yang and pushed through the onlookers toward him. She reached him in a few quick steps, grabbed his arm, and leaned her head on his shoulder as if they were intimate. Then she announced loudly, "He's my boyfriend." Lin Yang's eyes widened. Surprise and bewilderment flickered across his face. He hadn't expected to be pulled into whatever drama this was. Instinct made his body tense. "What's going on?" he managed. Chen Qingqing winked at him and mouthed, "Play along. Help me get rid of a pest." From where they stood, Lin Yang could see the kneeling man still reaching toward them with his bouquet. Putting Chen Qingqing's words and the scene together, the situation became clear. The man, Wang Bin, had been trying to propose and was being spurned. Hearing Chen Qingqing's declaration, the smile on Wang Bin's face froze. Confusion and wounded pride crossed his features as he glared at Lin Yang. He studied Lin Yang from head to toe. Lin Yang was tall, handsome, charismatic, on appearance at least, more impressive than Wang Bin. But Wang Bin had known Chen Qingqing for a long time and believed he understood her. She had never mentioned a boyfriend. Watching Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing's interaction, he found their intimacy oddly staged, and suspicion flared. He scowled and raised his voice in accusation. "You just picked some man and said he's your boyfriend. How can you prove it?" The question tightened the air. Curious heads turned, whispers rippled through the crowd. Chen Qingqing's cheeks colored, panic flashed in her eyes, but she forced herself steady. If she couldn't convince Wang Bin now, the scene would only escalate. With the eyes of the room on them, she made a bolder move. She rose slightly onto her toes, placed her hands on Lin Yang's shoulders, and leaned in. Before Lin Yang could react, she pressed her lips to his in a quick kiss. For a moment, the world fell quiet. Lin Yang's mind blanked, his pulse surged, yet he didn't panic. He drew a steadying breath and thought fast. Showing shock or rejecting her in that moment would humiliate Chen Qingqing and draw even more attention. So he decided to go along. He slipped an arm around her waist and offered a composed, confident smile as if they were a genuine couple. The crowd brightened with envy and approval. Chen Qingqing exhaled inwardly, relief flooding her. She looked up at Lin Yang with gratitude. He had saved her. Wang Bin's jealousy flared hotter. His fists clenched until his knuckles blanched, his face contorted with an unwillingness to accept rejection. "Humph," he said, bitter and loud. "Even if you two act intimate now, that doesn't prove you're a real couple. Maybe you're just putting on a show to trick me." Lin Yang smiled, a calm, slightly disdainful lift at the corner of his mouth, and replied, "If you don't believe it, there's nothing I can do for you, but the feelings between Qingqing and me aren't something a few questions from you can erase." His voice was steady and confident, eyes fixed on Wang Bin as if staking a quiet claim. Chen Qingqing added firmly, "Wang Bin, I told you already. I don't like you. Please don't bother me anymore." That settled it for many of the onlookers. Murmurs turned into scorn for Wang Bin. "She already has a boyfriend. What are you doing?" someone said. "You'd really be the homewrecker if you kept trying," another jeered. Wang Bin went crimson with humiliation. He swore under his breath, bitterness and wounded pride crackling in his voice. "Kid, you've got guts. Just wait," he spat, then turned and left the Westlake restaurant, his exit a half-threat and a half-retreat. At the same moment, a soft chime sounded inside Lin Yang's head, an intrusive system notification only he could hear. Ding. Deep contact with the intelligence target triggered a critical hit, yielding a high-value piece of intelligence. The item has been pushed. Please check. Lin Yang blinked. This counts as deep contact, he thought. He had assumed deep contact meant something more literal and planned, not a spontaneous kiss in a crowded restaurant. Curious, he opened his panel to see what high-value intelligence the kiss had unlocked. Chapter 32, Eightfold Return in 1 month. Reward Intel. On Monday, Foodie Battery will announce the mass production of its revolutionary solid-state battery. Its stock will surge, hitting consecutive daily limits. Entering at the right time will yield an 8-fold return within 1 month. Lin Yang smiled when he read the alert. Stock tips were exactly what he needed. He'd been searching for a market advisor all morning and by coincidence had made closer contact with Chen Qingqing, an interaction that apparently triggered the reward and produced this valuable intel. An 8-fold return in a month sounded unreal spoken aloud, but the numbers excited him. He already had nearly 100 million in his account, and with the Jinling community demolition compensation due next week, another 50 million, his principal would be roughly 150 million. If the tip was right, an 8-fold return would turn that into 1.2 billion. Fortunately, he'd found Hu Qian, a professional stock advisor, to handle large-scale fund operations. Doing it alone would be exhausting and risky. Professionals like Hu Qian had teams to execute complex trades and manage logistics. Lin Yang was not naive. He knew when to let experts take over. He was still thinking about the intel when Zhang Jun called out, "Sister-in-law," which pulled him back to the present. The address made Chen Qingqing instinctively let go of Lin Yang's arm as if shocked, her cheeks flushing. She turned to him apologetically. "I'm so sorry for dragging you out as a human shield like that. I didn't mean to. Please forgive me. I'll handle things from here." Lin Yang waved it off with a smile. "It's okay. We're old classmates. Helping each other is only natural." When Chen Qingqing heard the words "old classmates," something niggled at her, an odd, undefinable feeling of loss, but she couldn't dwell on it. She apologized again, then walked away. As she left, Zhang Jun leaned in, curious. "Brother Yang, what's your relationship with that woman? Is she really not your girlfriend?" Lin Yang shrugged. "She isn't. I just helped her out of a tough spot." Zhang Jun pouted in regret. "She's so pretty. What a shame she isn't sister-in-law." "Enough," Lin Yang said, and at that moment Hu Qian urged them along from the side. The three of them followed the waiter into a private dining room. Once seated, Hu Qian smoothly asked about dietary restrictions and then confidently ordered several of the restaurant's signature dishes. After placing the order, she handed the menu to Lin Yang. "Have a look," she said with an enthusiastic smile. "If you want anything else, go ahead. It's on me today." Lin Yang didn't make a fuss. He scanned the menu and was taken aback by the prices. He'd heard Westlake Restaurant was expensive, but seeing it on the page was another matter. Ordinary ingredients were elevated into extravagances. Bean sprouts, 2 yuan a jin at the market, were listed as 2,888 per serving under the poetic name Fiery Trees and Silver Flowers. Items that were already pricey elsewhere were many times more expensive here. The few dishes Hu Qian had ordered would easily total over 10,000. He clicked his tongue in amazement and, to be modest, ordered the cheapest green tea, 8.88 per pot. Soon the dishes arrived, each plated like a small masterpiece. They looked almost too beautiful to touch. To Lin Yang's surprise, one of the dishes was indeed the bean sprouts, Fiery Trees and Silver Flowers. When the waiter set that plate down, he paused and began his practice spiel. "Distinguished guests, Fiery Trees and Silver Flowers is our signature. We hollow out organic bean sprouts and stuff them with black pork. Then our top chefs carefully prepare them. The ingredient selection is extremely particular, and the cooking technique is intricate. It requires superb skill and experience to marry the tender sprouts with the rich pork, producing this unique delicacy." Lin Yang eyed the unassuming-looking yet expensive sprouts and sighed softly. The luxury here wasn't just in the price. It was in craftsmanship and inventiveness. He listened to the explanation while sampling the food. The first bite confirmed the praise. The filling and sprouts complemented each other perfectly. The sprouts were crispy and delicate, the meat flavorful and rich. It was, without a doubt, the best bean sprouts he'd ever tasted. The price had a reason. Wealthy diners returned not just for status, but for genuinely good food. Hu Qian noticed his enjoyment and nodded with satisfaction. "I'm glad you like it, Mr. Lin." Lin Yang returned the smile. "Thank you, Manager Hu, for the treat. I've never tried such a delicacy." The conversation turned back to the stock matter. His original plan had been to transfer the money after he received the demolition compensation next week, but with the intel in hand, waiting even a few days could mean missing the opportunity. While the dishes continued to be served, he took out his phone and transferred 90 million to Hu Qian's account, leaving a few million for emergencies. "Manager Hu, I just transferred 90 million into the account. The remaining 10 million will have to wait until next week," he said. Hu Qian blinked. The initial agreement had been to transfer 100 million next week. She hadn't expected 90 million now. "Is there a problem? Was something urgent?" Her phone buzzed with a confirmation. Customer Lin Yang's account, 7512, received a transfer of 90,000 yuan from Xingcheng Bank. Account balance, 90,000. She stared at the notification, stunned. 90 million, transferred so casually by a man in his 20s with no obvious wealthy background. Her expression changed from confusion to awe. "Young Master Lin," she said, voice edged with disbelief, "is there a reason you transferred the funds so quickly?" Lin Yang nodded. "Yes, I already have a target." Chapter 33. If you can't hold me, I can hold you instead. Manager Hu, when the market opens on Monday, please use all the funds in my account to buy Foodie battery with a full position. Hu Qian almost dropped the teacup in her hand. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and her voice rose a few octaves. "Mr. Lin, you have to be careful. We did sign a semi-managed agreement, and I'm only in charge of operations, but as a friend, I have to tell you to think this through." She frowned, worry creasing her brow as she listed the facts. "I've been following Foodie Battery. Their production equipment is outdated. Their tech can't keep up with the industry, and they've been losing money for years. Their reputation and prospects are poor. After last year's financial report, the stock hit limit down for a week. If it drops any further, it could be worth nothing. Buying now is like throwing money into a bottomless pit. There's a 9 out of 10 chance you'll lose it all." Lin Yang listened calmly. He knew every point Hu raised was true. Publicly available information painted Foodie Battery as a fading company with little hope. What she didn't know, though, was the key piece of information he held. On Monday, Foodie would announce the mass production of a revolutionary solid-state battery. The market reaction would be enormous, and the stock would surge, hitting daily limits upward. To him, this was a rare opportunity. To Hu, limited to public data, it looked catastrophic. He smiled. "Manager Hu, I really appreciate your careful, professional analysis. We see things differently. I have my reasons. Please execute my order as instructed. Have confidence. I don't think it will be long before you see the results." His confidence made the outcome seem inevitable. Seeing he wouldn't be swayed, Hu Qian could only sigh and fall silent, privately hoping he'd be lucky and avoid a big loss. In her years of experience, she'd never seen a company with such poor fundamentals rebound so quickly. After their meal, Hu Qian waved over the waiter to settle the bill. With service, the total came to 14,888 yuan, almost 5,000 yuan per person. Lin Yang felt a momentary shock. Not long ago, he'd been earning only 5,000 yuan a month through hard work. A single dinner costing that much felt surreal. After paying, Hu Qian said, "It's still early. I want to go to the mall and pick out a birthday gift for my mother. Do you two want to come?" Lin was about to decline, then remembered he'd be going home next week. This was a perfect chance to buy gifts for his parents. He hadn't been back in years, and he wanted to return with something that would restore their pride. He nodded. "I'll go." Zhang Jun declined. "I've got something else to do. You two go ahead. I'll take a taxi later." They left the restaurant and split up. Lin and Hu drove to the mall while Zhang took a cab. Warm yellow lights poured through the mall, making it cozy and bright. Crowds moved between shops, neon signs flickered, and the air was a mix of perfume and the sweet smell from bakeries. Standing in the center, Lin let his eyes sweep the displays. Faced with the dizzying variety of goods, he felt indecisive. Thoughts of his parents surfaced, and he didn't know what would properly express his gratitude. He turned to Hu Qian and asked, "I'm going back home next week and want to bring gifts for my parents. What should I get?" Hu paused, then smiled and offered practical advice. "For your mother, buy gold or jade jewelry. They hold value and would make her happy. For your father, a belt, clothes, or a massage chair, something useful and thoughtful." Lin thought of his mother's envious look whenever others wore jewelry, and his father's aching back. Her suggestions were perfect. He decided to start at the gold shop and then find a good massage chair. They headed to the largest jewelry store in the mall. A stage was set up at the entrance, and a dozen couples were warming up. A salesperson greeted Lin and Hu as they approached. "Sir, madam, we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. We're holding a couples hug contest. Winners get an 88% discount on any purchases today. Would you like to enter?" "A hug contest?" Hu asked, curious. "What are the rules?" The salesperson explained. "The boyfriend lifts the girlfriend off the ground. Her feet can't touch the floor. Whoever holds out the longest wins the discount." Lin smiled awkwardly. He and Hu had only met recently. They weren't a couple. Hugging a stranger in front of an audience felt uncomfortable, and he was about to refuse when Hu grabbed his hand. looked at him with an expectant smile, and asked, "Shall we go for it?" Caught off guard, Lin stammered, "We're not." Hu didn't seem to hear him. She tightened her grip on his hand and leaned close, lowering her voice. "I'm about to buy a big gold bracelet for my mother. An 88% discount would save a lot. Hugging is easy. Are you saying I'm too heavy to carry? If you can't hold me, I can hold you instead." Chapter 34. Panic. Who are you looking down on? Lin Yang wasn't a shy person. When Hu Qian said she wanted to join the event to try for the discount, he agreed without hesitation. She took his hand, and they went up on stage together. There were already more than a dozen couples there. Staff brought up a few more until there were 20 pairs. The host, microphone in hand and smiling broadly, explained the rules of the hugging contest. "All right, we have 20 couples. Once the contest starts, boyfriends may hold their girlfriends in any position, but the girlfriend's feet must not touch the ground. If a foot touches, the couple is out. The couple who lasts the longest wins an 88% discount on all store purchases. Get ready, everyone. Boyfriends, please lift your girlfriends." Lin Yang breathed in and reached out slowly. One hand cradled Hu Chan's knees, the other supported her back. His movements were stiff, his arms trembling a little, either afraid of hurting her or to steady his own nerves. Hu Qian's cheeks pinked. She turned her head away, not meeting his eyes, and gripped his shoulders with fingers slightly curled from tension. Their unfamiliarity made the air between them awkward and sticky. "Contestants, get ready. 3, 2, 1, start," the host called. The mall fell strangely silent, except for the contestants' heavy breathing. Less than a minute in, a couple fell. The boy's face was red, his arms shaking. He lost his balance, and the girl's feet hit the floor. She scolded him at once. "You're useless. You couldn't even last a minute." "Maybe it's because you're too heavy. Look how slim the other girls are. Then go find a slimmer girlfriend." One by one, other couples failed. Lin Yang's endurance came from years working as a technician in a factory. Moving parts had given him unexpected strength. Hu Chan was slim and light, and although holding her wasn't easy, he could manage. Time passed, and the field thinned until only 3 couples remained. Sweat beaded on Lin Yang's forehead. His hands shook slightly. Hu Chan glanced at him and asked, "Can you still hold on? If not, let's just give up." Lin Yang shook his head. "We came this far. I don't want to quit now." She nodded, heart skipping when she saw the determination in his eyes. Another couple fell soon after. The boy's legs trembled and his arms slowly dropped. The girl's feet touched down. Now only Lin Yang and Hu Qian remained against one other pair. Their opponents looked practiced. The girl had hooked her feet around the boy's waist and wrapped her arms tightly around his neck to save his energy. The boy's exhaustion didn't hide his resolve. Hu Qian watched them and felt urgency. Sweat slid down Lin Yang's face. It was clear he was close to his limit. She bit her lip and made a decision. Tilting her head, she slipped her arms around his neck and rested her hands on his shoulders. Instantly, they were closer, nearly nose to nose. Lin Yang's breath warmed her cheek, and she stiffened, suddenly very aware of him. Instinct made her cling tighter, not wanting to risk falling. The noise of the mall faded. For a moment it felt as if only their breaths and heartbeats existed, the warm overhead lights casting a soft glow over them. The crowd's shouts and applause blurred into the background. Hu Qian's ears flushed crimson, heat rising up her neck. Lin Yang's face was red, too, shy, nervous, but with something tender in his eyes. They held each other, body heat mingling, and a charged, ambiguous closeness filled the space between them. Finally, the other couple faltered. The boy's legs shook violently. Veins stood out on his forehead, and exhaustion painted his face. When the girl's feet touched the ground, a collective sigh of disappointment rippled through the audience. The host stepped up to the remaining pair and announced excitedly, "The contest is over. Congratulations to our winners." "We won. Lin Yang, you were incredible." Hu Qian beamed and hugged his head, so close she almost kissed him. The crowd erupted in applause, cheering their stamina and chemistry. Lin Yang lowered her slowly. She was still clasped to his neck, as if she didn't want to let go. "Can you let go now?" he asked with a small, amused "Oh, sorry," Hu Qian said, immediately withdrawing her hands. "I was so happy I forgot for a moment." The host handed them the victory coupon with a grin. "Congratulations. Your teamwork and trust were impressive. That 88% discount is well earned." Lin Yang accepted it and thanked the host. Hu Qian stood beside him, radiant with happiness. A group of women in the crowd whispered among themselves, "Wow, he's so handsome, and strong too. His girlfriend's lucky. Yeah, he gives off such a safe feeling." Those compliments reached Hu Qian and sent a flutter through her. She glanced at Lin Yang, his face still damp with sweat, the light catching the outline of his muscles, and felt her heart quicken. She took a few steadying breaths, trying to hide the sudden rush of something that felt like more than just victory. Chapter 35. Save where you can, spend where you can. Lin Yang saw the faint flush on Hu Qian's face and the shy little smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. For someone so decisive at work, this softer side surprised him, and for a moment a warmth flickered in his eyes. "We got the discount. Let's go in and pick out the gifts." His voice was calm and steady, breaking the brief silence. They walked side by side into the jewelry shop, where bright lights made everything shine with a golden glow. A female attendant in a neat uniform appeared almost immediately, smiling politely. "Welcome. Our gold jewelry is the finest in Xing City, every style you can imagine. Please feel free to look around." Lin Yang nodded and began scanning the display cases. Necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and rings, each piece was finely made and gleamed temptingly. A few cases held jade pieces that glowed softly under the lights. Intricately carved flowers, birds, fish, and insects, or smooth, polished pendants in classic shapes. Seeing Lin Yang and Hu Qian together, the attendant tilted her head and asked with a professional smile, "Sir, are you buying a gift for your girlfriend?" Lin Yang waved the idea away. "No, I'm buying gold and jade for my mother. Do you have any recommendations?" "Of course. This way." She led them to a corner of the counter lined with neatly arranged gold bracelets. These styles are more conservative, suitable as gifts for elders. He examined each bracelet and checked the tags. Prices rose with size. Small ones were just over 10,000, larger ones tens of thousands. The attendant asked, eager to help, "Which one do you like? I'll take it out for you." "Wrap them all up," Lin Yang said without hesitation. She blinked. At first she thought she'd misheard. Then she stared as if struck. Her smile froze, the tray in her hands almost slipping. "Sir, you mean all of these gold bracelets?" The question came out in a stunned stammer. Purchasing a dozen gold bracelets at once was far from ordinary. The total was a very large sum. Her breathing faltered, and she gripped the tray until her knuckles went white. The other attendants watched, eyes widening. One of the younger girls, face lighting up, whispered under her breath, "If only he were my boyfriend, so handsome and so rich, he could spend hundreds of thousands like it's nothing. I could live like a princess." She flushed as if lost in the fantasy, almost dropping the pieces she was arranging. An older attendant sighed and shook her head with a mixture of admiration and envy. "He's accomplished at such a young age. Look at him. And then look at my boyfriend. Why is the gap so big?" Around them, the staff exchanged low-voiced guesses. "He must be some company boss. Or maybe second-generation rich, doesn't even care about money." Their whispers spread like a current through the shop, adding a new, charged atmosphere. Lin Yang barely noticed. He was focused on what to get next and on Hu Qian's opinion. She paused, considering a display, and asked, "Can these items be discounted together?" "Of course." The attendant's smile brightened. "You're both today's champions of the hugging contest, so you get a special deal, a 12% discount across the store. Everything is priced at 88% of the original, with no upper limit." She began expertly packing the bracelets into delicately made boxes. Hu Qian nodded approvingly. "I'll pick one more thing." She moved deliberately along the counter, eyes settling on pieces as she made careful choices. Lin Yang laughed softly. "Manager Hu, with your income, you still fuss over small discounts." She glanced back and replied with a small smile. "Spend when you should, save when you should. Money doesn't grow on trees." He nodded, genuine admiration in his voice. "Exactly. Having money isn't a reason to be careless." While the gold bracelets were being wrapped, a perceptive older attendant produced 2 bottles of mineral water from under the counter and handed them to Lin Yang and Hu Qian. "Please have some water. Jade is also a lovely gift for elders. Would you like to take a look?" They moved over to the jade counter, where another attendant, evidently the specialist, stepped forward. "Sir, how old is your mother? What do you think of this excellent piece of mutton-fat jade?" She presented a small, pale jade Buddha. "This is one of our store's treasures." Lin Yang glanced at the price tag and nearly choked. A small jade Buddha priced at 880,000. The combined cost of the dozen or so gold bracelets he'd just bought was roughly the same. The attendant must have noticed that buying so many bracelets hadn't fazed him. She'd brought out the very best in hopes of a sale. Lin Yang didn't know much about jade, but the piece on display was indeed as lustrous as the salesperson had said. Its sheen gave off a calming presence even from across the counter. Whether it was worth the price, he couldn't say. He turned to Hu Qian and asked, "What do you think of this?" "This is top-grade mutton-fat white jade, flawless," Hu Qian replied. "It's a fine piece." Hu Qian knew jade well enough to recognize its quality at a glance. Lin Yang took her opinion to heart. The jade was priced at 880,000. With the store's 12% discount that day, it came to less than 800,000. His mother's health hadn't been great lately. Buying this for her to benefit her body seemed like a good idea. He made up his mind and told the salesperson, "All right, wrap it up." The salesperson, a middle-aged woman, smiled broadly when she heard him and set about packing the jade with an almost childlike excitement. Her hands trembled a little, but she worked quickly and efficiently, secretly congratulating herself on finding such a generous customer. After Lin Yang finished, Hu Qian picked out a jade bracelet for her mother's birthday and had it rung up together with his purchases. More than a dozen gold bracelets, the mutton-fat white jade, and Hu Qian's bracelet added up to 1.72 million after the discount. When Lin Yang paid and left, the store manager and 6 clerks stood at the entrance to see him off. "Please take care, sir. We look forward to your next visit," they said in unison, bowing politely with enthusiastic smiles. Only after Lin Yang and Hu Qian had walked well out of sight did they return inside. "Everyone, come in here," the manager called, gathering his staff immediately. His expression turned serious as he prepared to teach them. The clerks clustered around, still flushed from the excitement of serving a big customer, but composed now, waiting attentively. "You all saw the customer just now," the manager began, scanning each face. He was dressed plainly, not like a wealthy man, but he spent over 1 million without hesitation. If any of you had treated him dismissively because of his clothes, we'd have lost him. He paced slowly as he continued. "Today, I'll teach you another trick. Don't judge a customer's wallet by their outfit. Judge by their composure and their eyes." When he first came in, he scanned every counter without a flicker of surprise. That tells you these items mean nothing to him. That calmness remained even when he saw the 880,000 piece. People like that are hard to read. The clerks listened closely, some nodding, others showing expressions of dawning understanding. "Today, I want to especially praise Miss Huang," the manager said, turning toward the older salesperson. "She had the sense to recognize his ability and his need and recommended our finest piece. Your bonus this month will be doubled." Miss Huang, already elated at selling the store's prized item, beamed even wider at the news of a doubled bonus. "It's all thanks to your guidance," she said, and the manager nodded in satisfaction before dismissing them to their posts. The staff dispersed, each thinking over the lesson. Fortunately, the manager had long drilled them to never look down on a customer, to treat everyone with enthusiasm. After a few steps on the second floor, Hu Qian steered Lin Yang into a clothing store to pick out a gift for her father. The logo over the entrance read Amani, an upscale brand. In the past, Lin Yang had kept his distance from luxury boutiques. He used to feel uncomfortable walking past them. Now he entered openly and confidently, without a trace of nervousness. That confidence came from having money. Things that once felt out of reach no longer did. Inside, the store was simple and elegant. Soft lighting highlighted each piece as if draping it in a veil. Large fashion posters displayed the latest trends. The models' confident poses felt compelling. A faint perfume scent, distinctive to upscale shops, hung in the air, suggesting the brand's heritage. Lin Yang followed Hu Qian, strolling slowly as his eyes passed over tailored suits, uniquely designed leather shoes, and refined ties and belts. Every item, in material and craftsmanship, was top tier. The attention to detail was obvious. The weekend mall was bustling. Li Xiaojia and her best friend were out shopping, enjoying a rare day off. They wandered through stores, stopping now and then to admire window displays and comment on the clothes and accessories. Suddenly her friend grabbed her arm, eyes wide with surprise, and pointed. "Look, isn't that your ex, Lin Yang?" Li Xiaojia glanced where she pointed and saw Lin Yang walking into Amani with Hu Qian. Her heart stumbled, but she forced a calm tone. "That's my ex. We broke up over half a year ago." Her friend sneered. "Right, ex, lucky you. I heard he was fired from the factory a few days ago. He probably can't even afford to eat, and now he waltzes into a luxury store? What a show-off." Li Xiaojia frowned and stayed silent, but something stirred inside her. How had he ended up here with such a poised air? Her friend, oblivious to Li Xiaojia's shift in mood, went on. "My boyfriend works with him. He said Lin can't have much money. When I find someone richer, I'll dump mine too." With that, her friend pulled Li Xiaojia toward Amani. "Let's go in and watch. I want to see him get embarrassed and thrown out for not being able to buy anything." Through the display window, they could see Lin Yang and Hu Qian moving through the store. Lin Yang's composure and confidence fit the setting. He carried himself like someone at ease with the luxury around him. Hu Qian stood nearby, offering suggestions. They chatted and laughed together, looking very close. Li Xiaojia's friend scoffed. "Look at him, so poor, yet he dares to show off in a place like this. Let's go expose him." Li Xiaojia bit her lip. Her feelings were tangled. Surprise, a little regret, and a sharp sense that she had missed something important. Was she wrong about him before? Had she misjudged him as just a poor man? The memory came back clearly. Her best friend's boyfriend used to be Lin Yang's coworker, and it was on a visit to see him that Li Xiaojia first met Lin Yang. She had been struck by his looks and pursued him until he reluctantly agreed to date her. But soon after, she learned how poor he really was and that he couldn't give her the life she wanted. She'd broken things off then, never imagining she'd see him now, walking confidently into a luxury store with a beautiful woman at his side. Chapter 37. Clothes make the man, saddles make the horse. "Xiaojia, why are you spacing out? Come on." Li Xiaojia's best friend yanked her forward toward the boutique entrance. Li Xiaojia felt an inexplicable resistance and her steps faltered. Her hands trembled slightly, an awkward expression crossed her face. She tried to pull free and whispered, "Maybe we shouldn't go in. It doesn't feel right." Her friend wasn't fazed. "What are you afraid of? Let's go in and see. They can't kick us out, can they?" Reluctantly, Li Xiaojia followed. The moment she stepped inside, the air seemed thinner. She kept her eyes down, unwilling to look directly at the delicate displays and luxurious decor. Her fingers clutched the hem of her shirt, wrinkling it. She felt like Cinderella in a castle, utterly out of place. The sales staff only glanced at them and returned to their tasks. One younger attendant opened her mouth to greet them, but was pulled back by a senior colleague. "Don't bother," the older woman murmured. "They're not our customers. You can tell at a glance. Don't waste your time." The younger saleswoman frowned. "But their bags are over 10,000, and they're real. How could they not be able to afford things here?" The older woman scoffed softly. "Real wealth shows itself in how people carry themselves. The truly rich wear even a rag with confidence, like the gentleman and lady who just came in. These two are wearing designer logos, but their eyes are nervous. They won't buy." "Thanks, Sister Liu," the younger woman said, surprised but nodding. As the conversation ended, Lin Yang and Hu Qian stepped through the door. A sales associate in a black uniform with impeccable makeup immediately glided over, a brilliant smile warming her face like sunlight. "Welcome. How may I help you today?" "I want a few belts for my father," Lin Yang said. "Do you have anything suitable?" "Of course," the saleswoman replied, visibly excited. When she learned the purchase was a gift, her enthusiasm brightened further. She retrieved 3 mature-style belts, laid them carefully on the counter, and spoke with practiced admiration. "These are our best sellers, top-grade materials and exquisite craftsmanship, perfect for a present." She stroked the leather lightly as she spoke, eyes gleaming. Hu Chan leaned in, inspecting the belts with a professional, appraising look. She touched the leather, turned the buckles under the light, and examined the stitching. These are very nice, simple, dignified designs and excellent materials. What does your uncle usually wear? We should choose the one that suits him best. Lin Yang smiled and waved his hand. Wrap them all up. He didn't know which to pick, so he decided to get them all. 3 belts wouldn't be excessive, and his father deserved nice things after a lifetime of hard work. The saleswoman's grin bloomed even wider. She already pictured her commission. Wonderful. I'll wrap them right away. I'll make sure they look perfect. Her hands moved like a choreographed dance. Gift boxes, tissue paper, ribbon, and soon the belts were beautifully packaged in a designer shopping bag. She kept up the compliments while she worked. You have such taste. Your father will love them. It's so rare to see someone that devoted. Inside, she was counting potential commission in her head, imagining the dress she could finally buy. Her smile widened. Her service grew even more attentive. While the belts were being wrapped, Hu Qian's gaze drifted to a suit on a nearby rack. It was dark gray, understated, elegant, with a subtle sheen that hinted at quality. Lin Yang, look at this. I think this would look amazing on you. She tugged his sleeve, eyes glittering. The saleswoman moved in at once, still smiling. Excellent choice. This is a limited piece, Italian imported wool. It's soft, breathable, and drapes beautifully. The tailoring is flawless, hand-stitched by our top craftsmen. Classic design, suitable for business and formal events. Timeless. She demonstrated the fabric's texture and praised the workmanship. Lin Yang considered it. Now that his circumstances had changed, he'd likely attend formal events. A few proper outfits were necessary. All right, I'll try it on. The saleswoman beamed and fetched the suit. She led him to the fitting room. This way. Try it on and call me if you need anything. In the privacy of the fitting room, Lin Yang removed his casual clothes and slipped into the suit. He buttoned the jacket, adjusted the collar and cuffs, and looked at his reflection. For a moment, he was startled. The man in the mirror had changed. Already good-looking, he now seemed remarkably striking, more mature, composed, elegant. The cut fit his frame perfectly, the dark gray adding depth and a hint of mystery. Indeed, clothes make the man, and a saddle makes the horse, he murmured. After checking his reflection twice more, he opened the fitting room door. Hu Qian had been chatting with the saleswoman. At the sound, she turned instinctively. Her eyes widened, her smile froze, and she stood rooted to the spot, staring at Lin Yang. Her heart raced in a way it never had. Heat rose to her cheeks. Astonishment and something like affection filled her gaze. Her mouth opened as if to speak, but she found herself momentarily speechless, utterly captivated. In that instant, the world blurred around her. Only Lin Yang remained clear, as if he were glowing in her sight. She felt an unfamiliar flutter in her chest and had no idea why. At that same moment, Lin Yang's eyes swept the store and met Li Xiaojia's. Chapter 38. Otherwise, you can get back together with him. Lin Yang and Hu Qian were happily choosing clothes in the suit shop, their laughter blending with the soft music in the store. Then 2 women walked in, and Lin Yang froze. One of them was his ex, Li Xiaojia. His brow tightened. A flash of irritation crossed his face. He hadn't expected to run into her on an ordinary afternoon. Li Xiaojia's presence felt like a cold breeze in the warm shop. Lin Yang grew guarded, memories of her past nagging and material demands surfacing. He couldn't help thinking, she's not here because she found out I'm rich, is she? That worry wasn't baseless. He'd known her appetite for money long before. Hu Qian noticed his sudden change and followed his gaze. Do you know them? She asked. No, Lin Yang answered quickly. He wanted to put distance between his past and present and not let an old annoyance spoil the day. To ease the awkwardness, Hu Qian teased, half seriously, this suit really suits you. I was mesmerized just now. Didn't you notice? Relieved, Lin Yang went along with her and focused back on the clothes. I'll take this one. Could you recommend shirts, ties, and leather shoes that would go with it? He asked the salesperson. The salesperson beamed and led them to the lounge, bringing coffee and desserts while she went to pick out matching items. In the lounge, Lin Yang and Hu Qian relaxed with their drinks. Li Xiaojia and her friend, meanwhile, were largely ignored. The staff busied themselves with Lin Yang as if the 2 women weren't there at all. Li Xiaojia's friend grumbled, Why does he get all this attention? We walked in and no one even greeted us. Li Xiaojia leaned close and whispered, Don't make a scene. We're not here to buy anything. Lin Yang and Hu Qian chatted about recent stocks and market trends, discovering they had a lot in common. Their easy conversation and shared laughter drew them closer. Everything felt brighter between them. Nearby, Li Xiaojia and her friend looked increasingly out of place. After their coffee, the salesperson returned with shirts, ties, and leather shoes perfectly coordinated for the suit. "Sir, what do you think of these?" she asked, smiling. Lin Yang tried everything on. The shirt fit as if tailored, the shoes were simple and elegant. But when he reached for the tie, he fumbled miserably. He couldn't get a neat knot, and a faint blush crept onto his face. Hu Qian laughed, clear and bright, and stood up. "All right, let me help." He handed her the tie. Lin Yang had never dressed so formally. He didn't know how to tie it properly. Hu Qian's fingers moved with practiced ease. Lin Yang tilted his head a bit to make it easier. Her focused expression made his gaze linger. There was a soft flush on her cheeks and a slight nervousness in her hands as she worked. Their breaths brushed. For a moment, the air between them felt charged. Hu Qian hesitated, then apologized as she started the knot over. At last, she tied it perfectly and looked up with a satisfied smile. "There, done." "Thanks, you tied it beautifully," Lin Yang said, gratitude and admiration in his voice. "You're welcome," she replied. Li Xiaojia and her friend watched them and felt jealousy flare hotter, but their presence didn't break the moment. Lin Yang walked to the mirror and admired his new look, sharper, more confident. "Thanks for today, Hu Qian," he said. "Happy to help, and thank you for coming with me to shop for my mother's birthday present," she answered. He nodded to the salesperson. "Please package all of these." "Certainly, sir." Back in the fitting room, Lin Yang changed and handed the tried-on items back. The salesperson tabulated the purchase. 3 belts, 1 suit, 1 pair of leather shoes, 2 shirts, total 218,000 yuan. Will also include 2 pairs of socks worth 688 yuan. How would you like to pay, WeChat or Alipay? Lin Yang didn't hesitate. He opened his WeChat payment code and handed it over. The clerk scanned it, the machine beeped, and the payment went through. Li Xiaojia and her friend went pale as they watched him pay in one smooth motion. Their surprise turned to disbelief. How could the boy who used to scrimp and scrape, the one who constantly fussed over coupons and hunting for the best bargain, suddenly buy clothes worth hundreds of thousands of yuan as if it were nothing? 6 months ago, Lin Yang had been careful to the point of stinginess, juggling items in his cart to meet a coupon's minimum, wandering market stalls comparing prices, wearing the same plain, faded clothes for years. Now he moved with quiet confidence, like a different man. Li Xiaojia's friend, still stunned, nudged her. He must have had some lucky break or started a business and got rich overnight. "Xiaojia, why don't you get back together with him? As his girlfriend, you could have any bag you wanted." Chapter 39. Now he is my boyfriend. Li Xiaojia's heart wavered. Her best friend's words were like a match struck in dry brush, igniting something greedy and ashamed in her chest. She stared at Lin Yang, shock and a stir of attraction battling in her eyes. The poverty she had once scorned suddenly felt small compared to the world Lin Yang could give her. Designer bags, expensive clothes, everything that had been out of reach now seemed possible. But when she saw Hu Qian at Lin Yang's side, anxiety prickled at her. Hu Qian's beauty, poise, and graceful bearing made Li Xiaojia feel plain and clumsy. In her mind, she compared herself to Hu Qian and lost. Face, figure, dress, temperament, there was no contest. Maybe I should just give up. He already has a girlfriend, she thought. Her voice betrayed her disappointment when she spoke. Her best friend, however, scolded her sharply for thinking so small. "Xiaojia, even married people can get divorced. What's having a girlfriend? Did you see how Lin Yang paid just now? Not even a blink when he dropped hundreds of thousands on those clothes. He's rich and handsome. Where will you find someone like him if you let this go?" Her words cut through Li Xiaojia's last hesitation like a knife. Yes, she told herself. She was right. Li Xiaojia made up her mind. She hurried toward Lin Yang, plastering a fawning smile on her face, eyes narrowed into half-moons, lips stretched into an exaggerated grin that looked almost glued on. Her voice came out soft and coquettish, a breathy upward lilt on every line that felt practiced and forced. "Lin Yang, it's really you. Long time no see." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, took a small step forward and leaned in, trying to close the distance. How have you been? Do you remember that little snack shop we used to go to? Those simple days were so nice. I think about them a lot. They mean a lot to me. She blinked with an expression that tried for pitiful and nostalgic at once, hoping to tug at some memory in him. Lin Yang, I never really forgot you. Can we start over? Lin Yang's reaction was immediate. His brows drew together in disgust. His face went cold as frost. He took a long step back, as if she were something contagious. Don't be like this. It's over. There's no starting over. His voice was low, firm, and unhesitating. What he'd left unsaid was history. They'd met at the factory one evening when she and her friend went to wait for her friend's boyfriend. Li Xiaojia had been drawn to Lin Yang's looks and started pursuing him, talking about money and gifts so bluntly that Lin Yang had decided she wasn't right for him. She'd pestered him with WeChat messages and calls. After he blocked her, she'd stood at the factory gate to block him in person. He'd been so annoyed he'd decided to teach her a lesson, pretend to go along with her. He let her think she had what she wanted, certain she'd leave once she realized he wasn't a walking ATM. Half a month later, she dumped him. He celebrated with a rare big meal, glad to be rid of her. He hadn't expected to see her again here, and certainly not hear her ask to get back together. The thought made his head swim. He had recently quit the factory, and his rented place was about to be demolished. Soon, he figured, she wouldn't be able to find him even if she tried. Miss, excuse me, do we know each other? Hu Qian had been watching Lin Yang's face, and seeing his disgust, understood what was happening. She stepped quickly to his side and slipped her arm through his, smiling with calm confidence. Her smile was like spring flowers, bright, effortless. She lifted her chin just enough to show she belonged with him. Miss, please understand, Lin Yang is my boyfriend now, she said, voice cool and composed. Please don't disturb us. There was a faint trace of disdain in her eyes, as if Li Xiaojia's behavior were a bad joke. Li Xiaojia's face went white and red in turns, as if she'd been slapped. Her lips trembled. She wanted to say something, but Hu Qian's presence pressed down on her. She felt strangled by the silence and could not force a word out. Her hands clutched the hem of her dress so tightly her knuckles went white, humiliation and anger warring in her eyes. Her best friend pushed forward, trying to defend her. What do you mean, talking about Xiaojia like that? Maybe Lin Yang still cares about Xiaojia. She planted her hands on her hips and held her chin up in a posture that tried to look proud but betrayed her insecurity. Hu Qian glanced at her with quiet contempt, the corner of her mouth lifting into a faint, mocking smile. What you are doesn't matter. What matters is that Lin Yang loves me. Each word landed like a blade. So mind your own business and don't make a fool of yourself here. Li Xiaojia's friend was left speechless, cheeks burning. She twisted her hands into fists, shoulders trembling with anger, but no answer came. All she could do was stand there, staring resentfully at Hu Qian. Under the luxury store's bright, almost blinding lights, Li Xiaojia felt exposed, as if she were standing on a stage, and every gaze was a spotlight drilling into her. Her eyes flicked between Lin Yang's indifferent face and Hu Qian's look of disdain. Each meeting of their eyes felt like a needle prick. She quickly looked away. Her lips trembled. She wanted to say something to salvage the situation, but her throat was dry and tight. She forced a smile that froze on her face, then twisted into something worse than a sob. Let's go, she managed, grinding out the words. Her voice was raw with anger and humiliation. She turned and nearly stumbled, as if drunk, her legs betraying her. She didn't dare meet the eyes around her. Each one felt like a sharp pin. All she wanted was to get away, to find a dark corner and hide. Outside the mall, dusk had fallen. Heavy clouds hung over the city like a leaden lid, making the air feel oppressive. Li Xiaojia and her best friend waited by the curb for a car, bored and restless. Li Xiaojia checked her phone every few minutes and muttered, "Where is this car? So annoying." Her friend stamped her foot, anxious and irritated, when a huge SUV came roaring down the street like an untamed beast. It hit a puddle hard. Water shot up in a wall and slammed into the two women before they could react. For a moment, they stood frozen, eyes wide, shock pinning them in place. Then Li Xiaojia screamed. Ah! She jumped back, flailing her hands as the icy, muddy water soaked them. Her friend swore and stamped. What a terrible driver. Can't he drive? They were a sorry sight. Mud plastered Li Xiaojia's hair to her face, a strand even stuck at the corner of her mouth. Her once careful makeup was ruined, mascara streaked, leaving dark smudges around her eyes like a bruised panda. Mud speckled her clothes, and a dark, wet stain bloomed across her chest and the hem of her skirt, fabric clinging uncomfortably to her body. Her friend was just as drenched. Rage rose in Li Xiaojia. She clenched her fists so hard her nails bit into her palms. How could someone do that on purpose? She seethed at the driver she'd seen speed off in the distance. We didn't even get lucky today, her friend said, chest heaving, half joking about the almanac. They both felt helpless. The car had driven off at high speed. There was no way to catch it. Only frustration remained. Inside the SUV, Lin Yang sat behind the wheel, casual and composed, one hand resting lightly on the steering wheel as he chatted with Hu Qian in the passenger seat. His movements were measured. At a red light, he would cool the air a degree or two and ask if she was comfortable. Hu Qian leaned back, bright-eyed and laughing at something he'd said. Her laughter, clear and fresh, filled the car. They were enjoying the easy, intimate banter of two people who had no care for the ruined scene they'd left behind. As they rolled forward, Lin Yang frowned and slowed. "Did you hear that?" he asked. "It sounded like someone cursing me." Hu Qian paused to listen, then shook her head and smiled. "No, just a dog barking, I think. You must have misheard." Lin Yang nodded, the doubt lingering but unpursued, and pressed the accelerator. They had no idea that a few minutes earlier the splash of their passing had left two women soaked and humiliated on the curb. After dropping Hu Qian off at her company, Lin Yang drove back toward his apartment building. He turned off the engine and sat for a long moment, not getting out. He leaned back and stared at the dimming sky as thoughts churned in his mind. The demolition of Jinling community was approaching. Soon, he would have to move out of the place he'd lived for more than 2 years. With the demolition would come tens of millions in compensation, the result of a tip from the system that had allowed him to predict the decision in advance and buy 10 properties before prices rose. He ran the numbers in his head again. With assets now above 100 million, he could buy into any desirable neighborhood in Xing City and build a comfortable home. He told himself he would take time tomorrow to look at apartments and put down deposits. Xing City was huge. There had to be a place where he could settle. Early the next morning, Sunday, Lin Yang woke before dawn. He planned to visit a few developments he'd shortlisted. As he was getting ready, a familiar chime sounded in his mind, an alert from the system. Ding, weekly intelligence has been pushed. Please check. The system had recently upgraded him from daily to weekly intelligence. His first weekly update had arrived last Sunday. Now, exactly a week later, another intelligence push was waiting. Lin Yang pulled up the panel, opened the latest report, and began to read.